Okay, so this is a part two of my video about traveling. Um, my previous video, I was recording my iPad and run out of storage, so I had to make a second part. So yeah, basically, I was just to continue from where I left off. It was interesting meeting this individual, and there was something not quite right. I got the impression that something was a little bit off about her. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but just seemed a bit. She was very quick to jump from one person to the next person. She wasn't. I don't know. She just seemed a bit kind of superficial. Really, seemed a bit very. It's weird. Like it's hard to describe. She was friendly, but also kind of sort of a bit standoffish, kind of like a little bit kind of. I don't know. It's hard to describe, but she just seemed a bit. Something wasn't quite right. I don't know. Just something was off about her. But like I said, she was lovely enough. We had a good conversation with her. And I just got the impression that she was not that this video is about hair in solely about hair or anything, but I just wanted to mention it because I just found it's funny because she kind of she kind of fits into that kind of like backpacker kind of like single backpacker kind of thing, sort of aggressively independent kind of thing, and very cold, very distant in certain ways, and but sort of kind of friendly to a point, really. I think, but of course she was there to go to to the same place that we were going. She wasn't there to make friends or anything. But I just kind of she was she had a sort of nice demeanor about her, but also I got the impression that she had either dealt with some serious issues in the past, or is trying to has either run away from some problems, or is trying to not confront certain things. Not that it's any of my business, but I just got that impression. And I just and I've seen that so many times over the years. When I first came to Asia, I've met quite a few people, and you see these things time and time again. The same people, they wear the same things. They have a certain look about them. They kind of talk about the same kind of things, the same kind of demeanor. And a lot of them tend to come from in very specific places, very specific parts of their respective countries. And once you get to kind of, it's often the same kind of, essentially the same stories that there's issues at home, or they haven't met their parents' expectations, or they're rebelling against those things, or they just want there's often deeper reasons why people are traveling around. It's not just for the sake of seeing the world, although of course that's a great reason to travel. But I don't know. I just got kind of. She just something. Just like I said, I can't put my finger on it. There's just something not. I don't know what it was, but it doesn't matter. But I just found it curious. I just found it very interesting. Interaction, really. It was it's a bit odd when I think about it upon reflection. But anyway, but yeah, you know, it's not. I've met a lot of people, and it's often the same kind of things. Really, they're either over here studying, they're here on a gap year, they're here on, you know, in transition between careers. Or that, you know, they've come with a group of people, whatever, they're single and you know, sort of financially stable, independent types that have probably got rich mummies and daddies, probably. Um, and often a lot of these are quite young people as well, so I don't know how they managed to get all this money together, but you know, who knows? I'm sure some of them probably have decent jobs or had decent jobs back home, but I don't know. But I just find a lot of it's quite interesting when you think a bit more about it, rather than the sort of, you know, the facade that people put up a lot of the time. You know, there's often things going on a lot of the time with a lot of these people, and often you wouldn't really want to get to know these people too well. I don't think you wouldn't want to associate. You know, I don't know. I just don't think that, you know, the traveler part of people is not necessarily the same as, you know, the raw aspects of people, the sort of their raw personality. Because I think when people are traveling, and as should people should be, they're happy, and, you know, or at least whatever kind of happiness you want to class it as. But generally speaking, people are in a bit more of an upbeat mood, a bit more friendly, you know, and just sort of taking in the experience and enjoying the moment, kind of thing, which is what it should be about, and that's great. I mean, apart from really, I mean, I just think that, bar sort of a few circumstances, a lot of other people, you can pretty much count their justification or reasons for travelling on one hand, probably. You know, it's business, it's some of it's tourism, but a lot of it's business. You know, the vlogging kind of thing. You know, rebelling against their parents, the system, the sort of expected kind of like rules and things. Running away from problems. And just a lot of people just with a lot of personal issues, a lot of baggage, a lot of drama that you don't want anything to do with. And I certainly got my own you know, psychological, emotional baggage as well, and that's partly why I came with it. So I'm no exception to that, but I'm just saying that it's just something that I've observed. You know, it's something that I've seen time and time again, and you know, and there's a lot of fakeness as well. You know, it's great, people are having fun and all that, but you know, as well as it's a lot of it's very superficial, and you know, you're going to be lucky to make actual genuine friends wherever you are traveling across the world. I think especially nowadays, really, since social media, and I think the younger generation, especially those in their 20s now, I don't think it seems to be a lot more egotistical now than it maybe it was before. There's a lot more people seem to be self-absorbed and self-obsessed with their, you know, whatever it is, creativity, talent, skills. It's like, oh, that's all good and great, but it's like, who really gives a fuck? Who cares? And just, you know, just hearing this kind of same stories and things over and over again, it's just like, okay, great, wonderful. You know, it's like, I don't really give a fuck. Just like, I just came here to try and you know, it's like I didn't really come here to engage in any real conversation with anyone. I just came here to try and enjoy this particular tourist attraction. That was it. But you know, you know, you make the best. You try, but I just always get the feeling with a lot of people that there's just always this sort of like nosying aspects to people. You know, always trying to pry and try to get something out of you. It's like, you know, what are you doing here? You know, where you what's your reasoning for being over here, kind of. It's almost none of your fucking business, really. It's like I don't know you, I don't know you, you don't know me. It's like I can be friendly and open and honest to a point, but it's like at a certain point I'm just kind of like, I'd rather you weren't here with me. So I didn't really plan on meeting anybody or coming. I just came here to meet with my wife. But having said that, sometimes it can be nice to meet people that have a different perspective on you, have a completely different background, very different ideas on culture and things like that, and have different perceptions of your country than you do. And it's just nice to learn some things. It's nice to chat to people. It's nice. It's nice to have a conversation with people. But I just don't know. It's like it's I don't know. I just don't know. Sometimes I like small talk, and sometimes I don't. I'm one of these people that like just always feel like I had to sort of fill in the gaps, sort of thing. I don't know why. So I don't mind silence, but I always feel like I'm obliged to like say something, talk about something. Otherwise, I always feel like it gets awkward. Like it just feels like, oh, you've run out of things, so you're not very interested, and you haven't really got anything to say about it. It's like, well, I do, but it's just like you're caught between two worlds. It's like because if you say it's too much, when it's like, well, you're too bloody talkative, you're too, obsessed with your own voice, which I'm not. But on the other hand, if you don't say enough, it's like well, people might think that you're dull and boring, or you're just like sort of making things unnecessarily awkward or whatever. It's like, I don't know. You just try your best. That's all you can do. That's sometimes you think you're making the right decisions, and sometimes you don't, no matter what you do. So. But yeah, I just felt that for me it was nice to. I mean, look, the thing is, it was a nice break, but it was also a stressful break because like I said, that's what I said in the first part about it sort of being a holiday. Well, it wasn't really because it was very stressful because there was a lot of things riding on that visa being accepted, which thankfully it was. But it could have gone very sour. It could have gone the other way, and that would have turned out very bad in many respects. But that's the gamble you take. That's part of traveling, and whatever. Even if it's just a holiday, there are you do some to some extent make sacrifices. There are gambles, and there are no absolute certainties in life really. Besides, as they say, paying taxes and death. So. But it's good to, even just from a climate point of view, it's nice to just experience a bit of different weather. It's not that far away from here, but climate's a bit different down there. So it was an enjoyable experience in many respects. We got to try some different foods and go to some different places that we didn't get to go before. It was nice. It was nice in one way, but also very incredibly. It was stressful. It was very stressful at times. That's for sure. But I'm glad in some ways. I'm glad that we had that break because I think, my wife works a lot, and I'm not exactly. I won't say I was not busy, but not busy like her. And I think, sometimes we're just probably like all couples that have been together for a while. You start getting a bit sick and tired of each other's shit after a while. It's not in a. I don't mean that in any kind of like malicious. I don't mean that you fucking hate each other's guts or anything like that. I don't mean it in that sense, but I just mean that you start to get a bit tired of tolerating things after a while. So you've got that stuff going on between couples, and then you've got obviously the added stress of whatever it is, financial difficulties, problems at work, traffic, paying bills, things, prices going up all the time, dealing with inconsiderate wankers, just all sorts of things, right? Family problems, personal issues, health problems, etc. The economy, so corruption, whatever. It's so there comes a point where you need a break. You just need a fucking time. You need some time away, and having a break it's kind of like a reset in a way. It's sort of like resetting your mind, even if it's just for a brief period of time. It's just nice to sort of kind of like get off that treadmill, sort of like mentality of just doing the same thing again and 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 again, day after day, week after week, month after month. And it's just good to step off it for a little bit and look at it and assess what it is you're doing, where you are, and really be honest with yourselves. And what the hell are you doing? What are you doing with your life? Is that life that you really want? And if it's not, then what the hell are you going to do about it? Because you haven't read of money, you're not rich, so you've got to get a job to save money and then figure out what you're going to do from then. In my situation, because I think being in Malaysia, I think I realised that I think I could tolerate living there. I could, even though it's an Islamic country. It's, to me, it would be a more interesting place. Of course, depends what if you're living in somewhere like Georgetown or Butterworth or somewhere like that, and of course it's a much more touristy. Or certain times of the year, it's a very touristy, dominated places. But I could, even then, it's not like, I could tolerate being there. The climate's a bit better. The culture's more interesting, and there's plenty of things to do. But then again, like I said, it's easy to it's so easy to be naive and to look at things, in a certain way when you're riding the emotional highs of being away from home and the experiences and seeing new things and doing different things, but that can also blind you. It can also, it's not always a good thing, because it can lead you to ignorance and sort of silly ideas and just unrealistic expectations, really. So it's important to live in the real world. But having said, like I said, it's important to reevaluate your life at certain stages, and perhaps there's nowhere better than that in certain ways than a holiday, because you've got time to think. You're not worrying about paying the bills or dealing with your asshole boss or some asshole co-worker, whatever it is. You're just solely focused on being in the moment and enjoying the holiday. So I get why people, are kind of a bit, just kind of a bit hollow and a bit hardened and thick-skinned and kind of cold and distant in many ways. I get it, because people don't want to. I get it. I understand it. But also, it often means that you don't. Yeah, I like to have meaningful discussions with people. I like to, or at least to have sort of genuine discussions with people. That's just how I am. That's my personality. I've been like that since I was a teenager. But of course, you can't expect that with everyone. Certainly not. Vast majority of people certainly not going to want to, have certain types of conversations with you straight away, and I accept that, and I also don't want to do that either. So, but again, it's like I get it, but I also I don't particularly enjoy, an excessive amount of small talk and sort of, the sort of run of the mill, generic kind of, same questions and the same boring things that you've told people a million times before, kind of thing, or you've heard it a million times before. So I get it, but I also kind of don't like it as well. So it's difficult, and also you have to remember that people are in very different places in their lives. Whenever you, and then also that your holidays experiences are just as a unique experience as any other point in your life, your personal life. Your situation is unique to you, and theirs is unique to them, and they're often in very different places. Well, some people will be in similar situations, but most people will be in somewhat different or very different life stages, different places of their growth, psychological, emotional growth. Some people will be dealing with bereavement, trauma, the end of friendships, loneliness, depression, desperation, all sorts of things. Like I said, there's all sorts of reasons why people travel. Certainly, there's a lot of reasons why people travel alone, especially over here. So you have to be mindful of the fact that people are very different to who you are. When we are not all the same, we're very, very different people, and we've had our own journeys. And because of our experiences, that shaped how we think and feel about a lot of things. And our attitudes and beliefs and biases and outlooks and thoughts about pretty much everything are shaped by the people that we've been around or not been around. And the experiences that have kind of made us who we are. Whether we're conscious of it or not, it's a lot of things that have happened to us have made us into the people that we are today. The way that we talk, even the way that we approach certain situations, the way that we feel in certain contexts, and the way that we interpret certain things, social cues and body language, people's tone of voice, whatever it is. And so you have to be careful of that, because you don't want to project, and I've been guilty of that myself many times, and I accept responsibility for that. So it's nice to meet people, but you got to be careful to not project yourself onto it's easy to sit there and judge someone, or to try and get an idea of someone, but you don't know their life story. You don't know what situations fully that have led up to them being there at that moment, and so forth. So there's a lot of people's lives are messy, and that's why people go on holiday, isn't it? That's exactly the reason why. People's lives are not black and white. They're very nuanced. They're very complicated, and people have a lot of complicated relationships even with their own families. Their own parents, their siblings, and that can have all sorts of implications for developing friendships, developing romantic interests or not. All sorts of implications for your career, your job, whatever it is you do, and the way that you want to live your life, the way your level, your degrees of comfort, the path that you feel that you should go down in life, and the things that you should avoid, and certain types of people or personalities that you should avoid, etc. So it's difficult. People are difficult. And sometimes it's a shame. It's a shame that I think if things had have been different, how people's lives would have panned out differently, and how my own life would have panned out very differently to how it has. But at the same time, I feel just to a certain extent, blessed in some ways. You know, I've got a wonderful wife. I've got a nice house, really, here. Well, it's not my house, but I'm fortunate enough to be able to live here, and I'm fortunate enough that the Thai immigration authorities let me come into the country and have let me stay here since 2019. Obviously I've gone out of the country a few times, but in that time, so I've been lucky. I've been very lucky that I've been able to go elsewhere in this region or close to it, and I've had a few good holidays. I've had some good times. And I love my wife incredibly much for having my back, basically, when nobody else had, and just being there, just being that rock, really, in many respects. And I know we don't always get along, we don't always see eye to eye on everything, and we don't always agree on everything, and we are very different people. We still love each other, and that's the most important thing, and we tolerate each other because of that. And and I'm not saying that we have the healthiest relationship in the world or the best or anything like that, not by any stretch of the imagination. But I don't think most people's relationships are cut and dried. Relationships are very. There's all sorts of things that are going on in relationships that you might not always talk about, and there's all sorts of psychological things like there's all sorts of imbalances as well, and compensating and compromising going on, and it's difficult. It is hard sometimes to stay with someone in the long term. That's not an easy thing to do, because there are always easy ways out of things. You could always just walk away one day, and trust me, I've thought about that a few times over the years. Have an affair, I'll just make excuses of whatever and just leave, or just get a divorce. Or just break up the relationship, whatever. It's like it's easy. It's easy to just walk away from something. It's not so easy to and the thing is as well. Speaking about holidays, it's all good and well when you're on a high and you're kind of you see holidays really. There's like it's a chance when it's a phenomenon where people are at the best, but sometimes also at the worst as well. You see all sorts of behaviours and things, and you see sometimes really people can be very kind and very generous and helpful and nice, but you can also see a lot of spoiled, privileged, self-entitled, people with their heads stuck up their own ass kind of thing. I saw some of them in Malaysia. So it's the best and worst, really. But that's life. It's not. It's everyone's got their own shit going on. It's like, and that's why they're on holiday, partly. Yes, of course, it's because they've got so much time off, or they're retired, or they've been planning it for years, or whatever it is. But of course, there are other reasons just besides that. There are psychological, wellness reasons, spiritual reasons even why people come, especially over here. And you got to be careful not to judge people too quickly and make too many assumptions about people and their lives, and that's something I've had to learn, because I think there was a time when I was a lot more judgmental and stubborn about my judgments and what I felt was probably the case, and it's not always true. It's not, you just don't know people. You don't really know what people are like unless you've spent really a few years with them, at least, if not decades. But even then, it's like you don't always truly fully know who people really are, because people are good at hiding things. People are very good at hiding their private, personal matters, for the most part, anyway. And I usually don't talk too much about everything, or certainly don't share every detail of it. So, but in another life, I think things would have been very different. I wouldn't have been married to the woman that I am married to. I would have led a very different life. I would have taken a career much more seriously. And these things are things that I thought about from being in Malaysia. Really, it's just that that I should have had that life. That should have been really somewhere that I should have been living rather than Thailand. Really, I think I would have got more out of my life perhaps living there. That would have been more enjoyable, or maybe somewhere like Hong Kong or I don't know, but or some Commonwealth nation or something. But it just wasn't to be, and for a whole variety of reasons. Partly because I didn't have any skills and I didn't have a degree, and I don't have a career as such. So I was never going to be able to take up residency or citizenship elsewhere unless I train for something, and I think probably at this point maybe it might be too late now perhaps, but so I don't know, there's a thing of holidays are great, but it also kind of you see people sometimes and you think but then again, of course you don't know their personal stories, and you probably wouldn't want to be them if you really knew what was going on. But still, at least briefly, you do sometimes think to yourself, this could have been my life. This could have been me living this, doing that, going there. And that's hard sometimes. That's hard. That's really upsetting. It's depressing sometimes. And it's not a reflection on other people. It's the fact that I've often felt very insecure and very, very inadequate in life, and kind of feeling sort of like a low status, low value kind of person or something along those lines. Not that everything's about money or creativity or talent necessarily, but those things can certainly help you a lot, can give you a better quality of life, and being guided to some extent as well. But I certainly don't blame my parents as such, but sometimes I think it could have been better. Things could have been a lot better. Yes, of course, it could have been a lot worse as well, but there were opportunities, I think, where I could have been pushed towards certain things more, but I also have to accept that I'm an adult, and I made a lot of my own. I made a lot of choices based on emotions rather than logic and rational thinking. Really, that's been probably my biggest downfall in life. And holidays make you realise that you have fucked up, you messed up big time, and it's only you that can get yourself out of it. It's only you, really. You've got to push yourself probably into some uncomfortable situations to get yourself out of it. And I realised that's the reality of it. I'm going to have to do things, some uncomfortable things that I don't really want to do, but I've got to because I need money, and I don't particularly want to be here for the rest of my life. I'd love to live in somewhere like Penang or some Bali or somewhere like that, or even Taiwan maybe. But for the time being, I've got a bog standard degree. I don't have a master's yet. That's something I would like to do. But part of me is kind of like, what's the point? I'm not far off 40 now. Is it too late? Have I fucked my life up, kind of thing? Have I completely screwed it up? And sometimes I think I have. But then other times I think, well, I'm still relatively young. Maybe I've still got time to sort some things around, maybe. But so it's a bittersweet thing sometimes going on holiday, and don't forget, of course, you've got holiday blues to deal with, to contend with when you get back settled into your normal life. But you know, I couldn't live that lifestyle as well. I couldn't live out of a bag for weeks or months at a time, or even years at a time. It's just I don't think I could hack it. Maybe I've just got so used to But the thing is, I don't mind a bit of discomfort. I don't mind a bit of I don't mind getting out of my comfort zone from time to time. I enjoy it when I'm doing whatever it is. But it's just sometimes it's just getting to that point. It's breaking through that sort of barrier sometimes that pushes you towards it. That's been one of my downfalls maybe in life, is that I've not had enough confidence. I've not had enough self-esteem to push myself through to do certain things and have enough belief in myself that I could do them. And when you're on holiday, you meet a lot of younger people. Well, maybe not meet, but you might talk to younger people from time to time. You might see younger people and you think to yourself, I wonder what their life stories are. I wonder what brought them here. I wonder what they'll remember from this trip. What they'll say about. I wonder how many photos I might be in. And things like the silly things like that. And so, as much as holidays are great, you have to be. You have to be honest with yourself. You couldn't live that life forever. Even if you move there, I don't think not unless you genuinely really wanted to live there. I mean, for the most part, though, I don't think most people live in Malaysia. Most people just go there to travel, perhaps just have some business people, whatever, or get some kind of long-term visa or something. But it's not cheap to live there, and I think like anywhere, over time you'd get used to the place, and you'd probably get, the novelty would wear off after a period of time, and you'd feel the same there as you did wherever it was you was living before. So, you have to be really brutally, honest and aware of these kind of things. It's like it's easy to fall into this kind of like mental trap. Oh, it's great, everything's great, wonderful. Well, yeah, it is at the moment, because you're on holiday and you've only been here a few days, so it's like that for everybody wherever they go, where they don't live. They're not used to that place, But it's nice. But it is nice to have a place to call home. It's nice to have some stability in life. That's what it is. It's that yin and yang kind of thing, isn't it? It's that you need to have this sort of equilibrium. You need to have this. You have to try and find, as best as you can, some kind of balance in life between that stability and instability. That comfort and discomfort. It's really is. It's a marriage almost. And it's important to try and find, but a bit of both. It's good to have a bit of comfort, but it's good to push yourself sometimes. To do things you might not like, you might not want to do so much, because you never know what you're going to enjoy. You never know what you might want to do again. You might end up picking up something, some new hobby, some new interest. So you just it's easy to stay where you are, and to never push yourself, never challenge yourself, because a lot of people don't do that most of the time. And this is why it's good to go on holiday, because you're going to face, in any case in life, there are going to be things that pop up anywhere that you didn't expect, that you couldn't have planned for. That's the nature of life. But certainly when you go on holiday, that's certainly gonna ramp up, because there are going to be situations that obviously you have no idea about. Complications, whatever it might be, with wherever you're staying, money issues, getting around, and all sorts of things. But what you realise when you do go abroad is that the people that matter to you, your parents, your siblings, your wife, your partner, if you've got any kids, your pets, and that maybe that's, if nothing else, that's what matters at the end of the day. That's maybe the most important thing is having that perspective, is having that reflective period of being able to have a bit of clarity on things, and just appreciating what you have instead of what you don't have, but also being honest with yourself and saying, look, my life isn't perfect, and I can do something about it. I can change it, and I will change it. But sometimes, you just that holiday sometimes might just be what you need. Sometimes it's just that bit of time away. Sometimes can be that motivation that you've been lacking for months or even years. Sometimes, something that just pushes you over the edge and says, right, this is it now. We're doing this. We've made so many excuses. We've put off doing this for a long time. Let's do it now. Now that we're in this still in this mental space where we're like, we feel motivated and we want to do something. Use that to your advantage when that happens, because that can lead to some surprising results, and some, it can change your life probably in many ways. And that's also why holidays are necessary, because it can reshape your life, it can reshape the way you think. And certainly in terms of mental health, it can be very good for that as well. So, but there was so much I wanted to really talk about. I mean, maybe I'll make another video on this topic at some stage, but I think for now I'm going to leave it there. But yeah, it was a very interesting experience, and I needed it. It was good to get away. It really was. And I feel for people out there that are stuck in contracts where they don't have many holidays and they can't get away so easily. And I think it's wrong. Really, it should be a criminal offence. It should be wrong. It should be deemed to be wrong. Socially acceptable. To work for companies that give you a bare minimum. It's like, I get that companies have got to make profits to survive. I get that, but at the end of the day, I think people's mental health, people's well-being, being content matters a lot as well. And life's not all about work. It's not all about, of course, you need money for holidays, but it's not all about chasing money all the time. Sometimes it's just about living a little bit and seeing a little bit of the world before you health fail, before you get too old. That shit matters. It really does matter. Because one day you won't be able to have those holidays anymore. You only get one shot at this thing that we call life, and you've only got, the timer is going. The sand is going. And you don't know when that expiry date is, but you know it's coming at some stage, and for however it happens, whenever. None of us really know for sure, but we know it's coming. And like most people, I want to get some enjoyment out of life, because for me, life has to be about that to some extent. It has to be about marveling at nature and enjoying just living in the moment. Because if it's not, then there's no point waking up in the morning, really. There's no point having a job. There's no point working if you can't make use of that sacrifice that you're making, that time you're giving up, that precious time, that finite time, if it's not being used for something productive, something healthy, something good. So book a holiday and enjoy it while it lasts, and get out there and live your life before it's too late.